I never expected a single sentence in a Walmart restroom to rip open pieces of my past I thought I'd buried decades ago. But that night, as I pushed open the heavy metal door and the fluorescent lights flickered above me, I heard a trembling voice from one of the stalls, a voice so fragile it felt like it was breaking in real time. Please, please spare me. I won't again. I swear I won't. The words froze me mid-step. They weren't loud. They weren't angry. They sounded like someone pleading for their life. And instantly, before I could filter it, before logic could catch up, my mind dragged me backward to a boy I used to be, a boy terrified, cornered, begging someone to spare him too. That boy was me. My heartbeat spiked hard and fast, the kind that rattles in your throat. My palms went slick. Something inside me snapped, not out of heroism, but out of panic, adrenaline, and that old familiar mix of fear and rage tangled together. I took one step toward the stalls, then another. The voice stuttered again. Please, I won't again, I'm sorry. And then I heard another voice, older, harsh, the kind of tone meant to crush someone smaller. You think sorry is enough? You think you can steal and walk away? That did it. Every muscle in my body locked up. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I didn't pause. I just moved. I hauled back my leg and kicked the stall door so hard it slammed open and rattled against the divider. Hey, I barked without even knowing who I was yelling at. What's going on here? The metal vibrated under my shoe, but when the door swung fully open, the scene in front of me wasn't what I expected. No fight, no drug deal, no assault. Instead, a skinny teenager in a Walmart uniform stood there shaking, eyes red, cheeks wet, holding a torn plastic bag filled with a few expired food items, bread 2 days past date, a bruised banana, a dented can of soup. In front of him, an older supervisor towered over him like a storm cloud, face flushed with anger, finger jabbing toward the boy's chest. The boy looked at me like I'd just kicked open the gates of hell. The supervisor looked at me like I'd ruined his big moment. Sir, he snapped, this is none of your... You were yelling at a kid, I said, my voice lower now, but sharp. He cleared his throat. He was stealing. I caught him stuffing merchandise into his backpack. I'm calling the police. And corporate. This ends his employment immediately. The kid whimpered, shoulders curling inward like he wanted to disappear. I'm sorry, he whispered again. I won't do it again. Please don't call the cops. Please. I stared at him, at his trembling hands clutching that pathetic handful of food, and something in my chest twisted so hard it almost hurt. I tried to stand tall, to use the cold businessman persona I'd become so good at wearing. The millionaire with the perfectly ironed shirt, the expensive watch, the don't mess with me expression. The man who believed rules were rules. Consequences were consequences. Hard work solves everything. But the look in that kid's eyes, it was a look I knew too well, a look I'd worn on my own face at his age. A look you never forget, no matter how much money you make later. What did he take? I asked. Food, the supervisor snapped. Expired food, trash food. I frowned. Expired? Yes. But stealing is stealing. This is company property. The kid swallowed hard. I just needed something for my brothers, he whispered, barely audible. My mom, she's sick. I didn't know what else to do. The supervisor rolled his eyes. They all have stories, doesn't matter, he's getting arrested tonight. Part of me wanted to stay quiet, to walk out, to let the system do what the system does. After all, that was the version of me I'd built my entire fortune on. Discipline, self-reliance, zero excuses. But another part of me, the part I'd buried under years of money, success, and emotional armor, was screaming at me. That could have been you. That was you. I kept my voice steady. Look, maybe we should slow down. The supervisor scoffed. Sir, with respect, this is Walmart policy. We don't slow down for thieves. He wasn't wrong. But he was blind. Blind to the shame in the kid's body language. Blind to the desperation etched into his voice. Blind in the same way people once were to me. The kid's breathing hitched. I noticed how thin he was, how the sleeves of his uniform swallowed his wrists, how he kept glancing at the floor like he wasn't allowed to make eye contact with adults. He reminded me of a stray dog expecting to be kicked. I exhaled slowly. "What's your name?" I asked him gently. He hesitated. "Liam," he whispered. "Okay, Liam," I said, "just breathe. No one's hurting you." The supervisor threw up his hands. "Sir, I'm calling the police. Step aside." That was the moment the tension snapped. Not an explosion, not anger, something deeper, colder, more precise. The moment when the past and present collided inside me and I realized if I didn't intervene, this kid's entire life could shatter before it even started. I didn't know him. I didn't owe him anything. But as he stood there trembling in that filthy Walmart stall, I felt like I was looking at a younger version of myself, one no one ever saved. I stood between the supervisor and the kid. "You're not calling the police," I said. The supervisor blinked. "Excuse me? You heard me? And who do you think you are?" I swallowed. Someone who knows what it's like to be on his side of this situation. The supervisor studied me like he was trying to place me. Trying to decide whether I was a lunatic or someone he should fear, he chose annoyance. "Sir, step aside." "No." The kid stared at me like I'd just thrown him a lifeline. I wasn't sure yet if I had. All I knew was my pulse was pounding, my past was rising like a tide, and something inside me had already made a decision before my brain could rationalize it. I wasn't leaving that restroom, not without finding out the truth. Not without knowing why a kid was begging to be spared over a few expired groceries. And not without making sure he walked out of there on his own 2 feet. The supervisor's jaw clenched so tight, I could see the muscle in his cheek twitch. For a second, I thought he might physically push me out of the way. "Sir," he said, voice shaking with anger, "I don't know who you think you are, but this store has policies. I'm not about to get fired because some stranger wants to play hero for a thief." The word thief hit the air like a slap. Liam flinched. His chin dropped even lower, as if that word weighed 50 pounds. I remembered the first time I heard that word thrown at me. I remembered the way it burrowed into my skin like a tattoo I never asked for. I took a breath, steady and deliberate. "I'm not asking you to lose your job," I said. "I'm asking you to use judgment. There's a difference between a kid trying to eat and someone running off with a TV." He scoffed. "Stealing is stealing." "Is it?" I asked quietly. "Is a starving man who takes bread the same as a man who robs a bank for fun?" He glared at me. "I don't have time for philosophy." He reached for his phone. "I'm calling the manager and security. They'll decide." Liam gasped softly. "Please," he whispered, "please don't." His voice broke. I turned to Liam. "Did you take anything besides this?" I pointed at the bag. He shook his head quickly. "No, sir, just this." It was in the cart with the stuff they were going to throw away anyway. I thought since it was going to be trash, maybe no one would. His sentence dissolved into silence. I looked at the dented can, the stale bread, the banana that had seen better days. This wasn't some grand heist. This was a cry for help with a price tag of maybe $5 on a good day. The supervisor, whose name tag read Todd, stepped out of the stall, clearly wanting to move this to a more official setting. "Both of you, out, now." I looked at Liam. "Come on," I said gently. "Let's step outside." We walked out of the cramped restroom into the harsh brightness of the store. The fluorescent lights suddenly felt even more aggressive, like judgment shining down from the ceiling. A couple of customers glanced over, curious. Todd grabbed a walkie-talkie from his belt and spoke into it. "I need the manager and security to the back restroom area," We have a shoplifter. I felt Liam stiffen beside me like the word itself was a gun pointed at his back. I remembered the first time someone said police in my direction when I was his age. I remembered my heart stopping. I remembered thinking, if they arrest me, that's it. No second chance, no future. Just a file with my name in it. A label I'd never shake. I swallowed down an old, bitter taste in my mouth. Liam, I said quietly. How old are you? 17, he murmured. You live with your parents? He shook his head. Just my mom and my brothers. How many brothers? 2, 9, and 11. I nodded slowly. And your mom? She's sick? He nodded again, lips pressed together like every detail he admitted would make him smaller. She works? I asked. The way his eyes flickered told me the answer before he even spoke. She used to, he said. She got sick last year. She cleans houses sometimes when she feels good enough. But mostly it's me. That's why I got the job here. Todd rolled his eyes dramatically. Don't fall for that sob story, sir. They all have one. You know how many kids tell me my mom is sick when they get caught? It's textbook. Something snapped in me. Maybe, I said calmly. Or maybe you've heard so many stories that you've forgotten they belong to real people. His eyes narrowed. You a social worker or something? No, I said. Just someone who remembers what it's like to be hungry. Before he could answer, a stocky man in a blue vest with a store manager badge approached, followed by a tall security guard. The manager, with thinning hair and glasses sliding down his nose, looked between us. What's going on here? Todd spoke fast, eager. Caught him, he said, pointing at Liam. He was hiding expired food in his bag, trying to walk out with it. I say we call the cops. Make an example. The manager sighed, like this was a nuisance at the end of a long day. You admit it? He asked Liam. Liam's shoulders trembled. Yes, sir, he whispered. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to what? Steal? The manager pressed. Liam's desperate eyes flickered to me, then back to the ground. He had no words left. I stepped in. Can I say something? The manager looked at me, taking in my crisp shirt, my watch, the way I carried myself. You can always tell when someone is mentally calculating your net worth based on your posture and clothes. Who are you? He asked. I'm a customer, I replied. And I happened to walk in when this was happening in the restroom. I heard the whole thing. Okay, he said. And? And I think calling the police over expired food is insane. The security guard crossed his arms. Store policy is to take theft seriously, sir. Doesn't matter what the item is. If we let one slide, we set a precedent. Todd nodded vigorously. Exactly. The manager rubbed his temples. Look, kid, he said to Liam. You know better. You signed the handbook. You know the rules. Liam nodded, tears filling his eyes. I didn't know what else to do, he whispered. We don't have food at home. My mom hasn't eaten in 2 days. My brothers... His voice broke again. He swallowed hard, trying to hold it together. They're always hungry. I get paid Friday, I thought if it was trash anyway, maybe it wouldn't matter. I'm sorry. Something about the way he said trash wouldn't matter drilled into my chest. I remembered being 12, staring into a dumpster behind a grocery store, trying to decide if jumping in for thrown-away bread was worth the risk of getting caught. I remembered the terror when a store employee came out, catching me half in, half out of the bin. I remembered the humiliation, the name-calling, the way my cheeks burned with shame. And I remembered with startling clarity the older man who'd stepped in that day. The man who said, "He's just a hungry kid," and told the employee to let me go. That man never knew how much he changed my trajectory. I never saw him again, but I never forgot him. Has he stolen before? I asked the manager, pulling myself back to the present. Not that we know of, the manager said. He's usually a good worker. Todd interjected. But this is serious. He crossed a line. There have to be consequences. There do, I agreed quietly. But they don't have to be life-destroying ones. The manager looked torn, caught between policy and humanity. I recognized that look. I'd worn it often enough in my own company when deciding whether to fire someone over a mistake. I took a breath. Look, let me put it plainly, I said. If you call the police, you're not just punishing him for taking $5 of garbage. You're giving a 17-year-old a record. You're branding him for life. You think that's going to teach him responsibility? Or just teach him that this world has no mercy for people like him? The manager shifted uncomfortably. The security guard's expression softened a fraction. Todd folded his arms tighter, clearly disapproving. The manager hesitated. Even if we don't call the cops, he said slowly, he can't stay. This is a termination offense. Liam's face drained of color. Please, he whispered. I need this job. My family? He couldn't finish. The words were too heavy. The silence stretched. My mind was a war zone. The businessman in me whispered, you can't save everyone. People make their choices. Actions have consequences. Another voice, older, deeper, the voice of the boy I once was, answered, if that stranger hadn't stepped in for you, where would you be right now? Most people looking at me in that moment would see a well-dressed man weighing an annoying moral dilemma. They wouldn't see the terrified kid inside standing in front of a dumpster, praying not to be hauled away in handcuffs. They wouldn't see the nights I went to bed hungry, or the times I believed my life would never amount to anything because of where I came from. They wouldn't see the one time someone chose mercy over punishment for me. Can I talk to you? I asked the manager, nodding toward a slightly quieter aisle. He exchanged a look with the security guard, then nodded. Fine, he said. 2 minutes. We stepped a few feet away, still within view, but out of immediate earshot of Liam and Todd. What is it? He asked, clearly exhausted. I know you have policies, I said. I know you can't just ignore them. I run a company myself, I get it. But there's a difference between dealing with a habitual thief and a desperate kid trying to feed his family. Desperate or not, he stole, the manager said. If I make exceptions, I have to answer to corporate. They don't care about backstories. I studied him for a second. What if, I said slowly, I make it worth your while to handle this differently? His eyebrows shot up. Are you trying to bribe me? No, I answered firmly. I'm trying to tell you I understand you're stuck between what's right and what's safe. I'm willing to cover any loss, any penalty, any headache this causes you. I'll pay for the items. I'll sign something if you want, saying I take full responsibility for the incident. I just don't want that kid getting arrested and blacklisted from future jobs because he took expired food home. The manager looked at me for a long moment. You said you run a company, he said. What kind of company? I almost smiled. Real estate, investments, some logistics. I own the logistics firm that handles a portion of this store's distribution in the region. His eyes widened slightly. You own Apex Freight? Yeah, I said. That's me. He swallowed. I've seen your name on paperwork. So you know I'm not just some random guy off the street trying to stir up trouble, I said. I know what it's like to have margins, rules, upper management breathing down your neck. I'm not asking you to break the system wide open. I'm asking you to remember you're a human being dealing with another human being. He sighed deeply, the sound of a man carrying weight. Even if I don't call the cops, he said, even if I let security stand down, I still have to decide if he keeps his job. Then consider this, I said. What's more valuable, teaching him that this is a world where one mistake ends everything, or teaching him that sometimes when you mess up, someone gives you a chance to do better? He looked past me at Liam, who stood nervously, twisting his hands, eyes red, body small against the towering shelves of merchandise. The kid looked like a ghost drifting through a place that didn't really see him. The manager rubbed his face slowly. "You really think he'll do better?" he asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I can't promise that. People are unpredictable. But I know what it felt like when someone believed I could do better, even when I'd given them every reason not to." He studied me again, thoughtful now. "What happened to you?" he asked quietly. I smirked, humorless. "Let's just say I've been on the wrong side of a store manager's decision before. Somebody chose mercy. I never forgot it." He nodded once, slowly. "If I do this," he said, "I need to know he won't make me regret it." "Give him a warning," I said. "Write him up. Make it clear this is his last chance. I'll talk to him myself. I'll make sure he understands what's at stake." "And you'll pay for the items?" "All of them, and more if you need a report to show corporate." He exhaled again, shoulders dropping an inch. "Okay," he said finally. "No police, no security report filed tonight. I'll keep this internal, but he gets a final warning. One more screw-up, he's out. And I'm putting a note on his file that this incident happened." "Fair," I said. We walked back toward Liam. He looked at us like he was standing in front of a judge waiting for a sentence. Todd's eyes were already gleaming, like he hoped the verdict would be harsh. The manager spoke slowly. "Liam," he said, "I should be calling the police right now. I should be firing you on the spot." Liam's lips trembled. "Yes, sir," he whispered. "But I'm not going to," the manager continued. Liam blinked, as if he wasn't sure he heard correctly. "You're not?" "No. I'm giving you one final warning. This incident goes in your file. If you ever do anything like this again, we're done. No discussion. Understood?" Liam nodded rapidly, tears spilling over. "Yes, sir. I understand. Thank you." I'm so sorry. It won't happen again." "And you're going to talk to him," the manager said, nodding toward me, "and listen to what he has to say. Because he just went out of his way to keep you out of handcuffs." Liam turned his wide eyes to me, disbelief and confusion swirling together. You did?" he asked. I shrugged a little, uncomfortable with the attention. "Yeah," I said, "but I didn't do it for free." His face fell, panic flashing again until I added, "The price is that you have to tell me the truth, all of it. No hiding, no pretty version. Deal?" For the first time, a tiny flicker of something like hope sparked in his eyes. "Deal," he whispered. Todd shook his head in disgust. "You're making a mistake," he muttered to the manager. "Kids like that don't change." The manager gave him a tired look. "Maybe," he said. "Or maybe we're all one mistake away from needing someone to believe in us." Todd scoffed and walked off, clearly unhappy his moment of authority had been stolen. The security guard quietly nodded to the manager and drifted away as well, tension bleeding out of the air. It was just me and Liam now, standing between the aisles of toilet paper and cleaning supplies under the hum of fluorescent lights. The normal noises of the store resumed around us. Shopping carts rolling, scanners beeping, people chatting. It was like the world had swallowed the whole scene and gone back to business as usual. But inside me something had shifted, and I suspected the same was true for him. "Come on," I said. "Let's walk." We moved slowly toward the front of the store, staying to the side, out of the way of shoppers. "You got a break?" I asked. I think so," he said. "I was almost done with my shift anyway before this." "Good," I said, "because we're going to talk." He glanced at me nervously. Are you a lawyer or something?" I laughed softly. "No, I'm worse. I'm a businessman." "Oh," he said, as if that somehow intimidated him more. We walked past the groceries, past the electronics, past the rows of cheap clothes. I could see people, families, couples browsing casually, tossing things into their carts without thinking twice. I wondered if they ever realized how close some people stood to the edge between enough and nothing. Probably not. I barely had until someone forced me to remember. We stopped near a quieter corner by the garden section, where only a few bored shoppers lingered by bags of soil and fake plants. I leaned against a shelf and crossed my arms. "Okay," I said. "Tell me everything." He swallowed. "Everything?" "Everything that led you to hiding expired bread in your bag and begging a supervisor to spare you in a bathroom stall." He winced. Hearing it put that way clearly stung. I didn't know anyone else heard that," he murmured. "Yeah," I said. "Well, I did. And it kind of hit home in a way I wasn't ready for." He watched me, curious now, not just scared, curious. "My mom got sick last year," he began slowly. "She used to work full-time at a hotel, cleaning rooms. She's tough. Always was. She raised us alone. My dad left when I was 3. She never complained. Just worked. But then she started getting tired. Like, really tired. Then dizzy. Then she fainted at work. They took her to the hospital. They did tests. She's got some kind of heart condition. I don't know the name. She just calls it my stupid heart." He tried to smile, but it didn't last long. "She lost her job," he continued. "Too many absences. They said they were sorry, but..." He shrugged. "Sorry doesn't pay the rent. She tried to get disability, but it's taking forever. So I started working more. I took this job. I do school during the day, work nights. I thought I could handle it." "And?" I asked quietly. He looked down at his sneakers. "Rent went up. Groceries went up. Everything went up. My hours got cut for a couple weeks. My little brothers eat like machines. Mom, she tries not to eat so we can. She thinks we don't notice, but we do." His voice cracked. He cleared his throat. "Tonight I came in and did my shift. I was so hungry my stomach hurt. I kept thinking about my brothers. There was a cart full of stuff they were going to throw away. Expired. The guy from the back said he'd push it to the trash later. I stared at it. I kept telling myself not to touch it, but I couldn't stop thinking about how my brothers would look at that bread like it was heaven." He glanced up at me, eyes glistening. "So I waited until no one was around and I put a few things in my bag. I thought, if they were going to throw it away anyway, maybe it wasn't really stealing. I knew it was wrong. I knew it. But I don't know. I panicked. Then Todd followed me to the bathroom. I didn't even know he'd seen me. He locked the door and started yelling. Said he was going to call the cops, ruin my life, make sure no one ever hired me. I thought it was over. I've never been so scared." His words hung there between us, raw and simple. There it was. Not a master criminal, not a scam artist. Just a kid doing math between hunger and humiliation and making a terrible choice in the middle. I watched him for a moment, then spoke slowly. "You know what the difference is between you and the man you almost became tonight?" He frowned. "What?" "Someone stepped in," I answered. "Someone decided not to let this moment define you forever." He stared at me, unsettled. "Why?" he asked. The question hit deeper than he probably realized. "Why did you help me? You don't know me. You could have just walked out." I looked at him, and for a heartbeat I saw myself at 12, scrawny and scared behind a grocery store. I could still hear the employee yelling. I could still hear my own shaking voice begging, "Please, please don't call the cops. I won't do it again. I promise." And I could still hear the older man who stepped between us saying, "He's just a hungry kid. Put the bread on my tab." I never knew his name. But if he hadn't done that, I might have gone down a very different road. "That's a long story," I said softly. "But the short version? Because someone once did for me what I just did for you. And I spent years pretending I'd gotten here all on my own. Tonight reminded me that's not true. Liam blinked. Gotten where? Here, I said. To this life, to the money, to the respect, to being the guy other people listen to. I watched his eyes widen as the pieces clicked. You're rich? He asked bluntly, then instantly regretted how that sounded. I mean, sorry, that came out. I chuckled. It's fine. Yeah, I'm comfortable. His gaze dropped to my watch. That thing probably costs more than our trailer, he muttered. I didn't argue. He might have been right. The point isn't what I have now, I said. It's where I came from. And tonight, hearing you beg in that bathroom, it was like hearing my own voice back then. I couldn't ignore it. He swallowed, overwhelmed. So what now? He asked. I mean, I still have a job, I guess. For now. But rent's still due. There's still no food at home. I still made a huge mistake. This doesn't magically fix anything. He was right. Mercy doesn't erase reality. It just gives you enough breathing room to face it. I nodded slowly. What's your address? I asked. He hesitated, suspicious again. Why? Because, I said, instead of walking out of here feeling like a thief who got lucky, I want you to walk out feeling like you just got a second chance. And sometimes a second chance comes with a ride. His eyes narrowed. You're not some creepy guy, are you? I laughed. No, I promise. Tell you what, call your mom. Put her on speaker. Let her decide if you can talk to me. He considered that and slowly nodded. Okay, he said. He pulled out an old phone with a cracked screen, dialed a number, and pressed it to his ear. Hey, Mom, he said when she answered. His voice instantly softened, carrying a tenderness I hadn't heard before. Are you okay? I listened as he explained in broken pieces what happened. The stolen food, the near police call, the stranger who intervened. I heard her voice through the tiny speaker, thin, tired, worried, apologizing for being a burden. He rushed to reassure her she wasn't. Then he said, he wants to help. He says he wants to come by just to talk. Is that okay? There was a long pause on her end. Then I heard her say, faint but firm, if he helped you stay out of jail tonight, I at least owe him a conversation. Liam looked at me. She said it's okay, he murmured. All right, I said. Then here's what we're going to do. You're going to clock out. I'll pay for some groceries. And then I'm going to drive you home. We're going to see what's really going on. No more guessing. As we walked toward the checkout lanes, I could feel the invisible line I was crossing inside myself. The old me, the polished millionaire who kept his distance from messy lives, would have said, you did your good deed. Walk away. You don't owe them anything more. But another voice, quieter but stronger, was whispering that this was more than a chance encounter. This was a mirror, a test. A question life was asking me, now that you have power, what kind of man are you going to be? If you're listening to me tell this right now, you might be thinking, I'd have walked away, or I'd have done the same, or maybe, I don't know what I'd do. The truth is, you never really know until you're standing there watching a kid's future hang by a thread over a handful of expired groceries. And in that moment, all the things you say you believe about fairness, mercy, justice, and responsibility get put on the stand. That night in Walmart was the first time in a long time I realized my own beliefs were on trial too. And as we filled a cart with basic groceries, rice, beans, bread, milk, some vegetables, some frozen dinners, I knew one thing for sure. This story wasn't over. Not for Liam. Not for me. Not by a long shot. We walked out of Walmart with 2 full bags of groceries. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, but enough to get them through the next few days. I insisted on carrying everything, even when Liam tried to take one of the bags from me. You've already done too much, he murmured. Let me at least carry something. No, I said. You carry enough every day. He looked at me strangely, like no one had ever said that to him before. When we stepped outside, the air was sharp with late fall cold, the kind that makes your breath visible. The parking lot lights glowed overhead, casting long shadows. My SUV was parked a bit farther down, sleek and polished, completely out of place in that environment. Liam stared at it for a moment. "That yours?" he asked quietly. "Yeah." "Damn," he whispered under his breath. "Sorry, just didn't expect someone like you to walk into a Walmart restroom." I smiled faintly. Money doesn't make you need paper towels any less. He actually laughed at that, a soft, nervous laugh. But it was the first time I'd seen him relax even a little. I opened the passenger door for him. He hesitated before getting in, still unsure, still cautious, still waiting for the world to turn on him again. Kids who grow up carrying adult burdens learn not to trust peace. Peace feels like a trap. I recognized the look because it used to be my permanent expression. Once inside, he buckled his seatbelt and held the grocery bags against his chest like they were something fragile. I started the engine. The heat kicked on slowly. "Where to?" I asked. He gave me an address, an older trailer park on the outskirts of Tulsa. I knew the area. My stomach tightened. It wasn't dangerous, just forgotten. It was the kind of place people drove past and pretended not to see. As we drove, he watched the world through the window as if it belonged to someone else. Streetlights, restaurants, people laughing on sidewalks. I could feel questions swirling inside him. He finally spoke, voice soft. "How did you turn everything around?" I didn't answer immediately. The truth was complicated. "I got lucky," I said, "and I worked hard, but luck came first. People pretend it's the other way around, but it's not." He absorbed that like it was new information. "Everyone always tells me hard work fixes everything," he murmured. "They lie," I said gently. "Hard work helps, but luck decides who gets the chance." He stared at his hands. "So what if you never get lucky?" "Then someone has to step in," I said. "Sometimes a person becomes the luck you didn't get." He glanced at me again, really looked at me, and I knew he was trying to understand why a stranger would do this for him. I wasn't sure I fully understood myself. All I knew was that something bigger than logic was pushing me forward tonight. The road grew rougher as we approached the trailer park. Streetlights were sparse. The pavement cracked. A few old cars sat in driveways, hoods open, like skeletons mid-autopsy. Kids played basketball using a rim with no net. Someone barbecued on a crooked metal grill. And yet, there was a strange kind of resilience there, life refusing to give up. "That's us," Liam said quietly, pointing to a small beige trailer with a sagging porch and a single light flickering inside. As soon as I parked, the front door opened and a woman stepped out, thin, pale, wrapped in a robe, holding the railing for balance. Her hair was pulled back messily, face tired but strikingly gentle. She looked like someone who used to carry the world with strength but now struggled to hold even herself up. "Mom," Liam said, rushing forward. She moved down the steps slowly, gripping the railing. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm fine," she said softly. "Just tired. I wanted to see who this guest is." She looked at me, uncertain. I stepped forward slowly, careful not to overwhelm her. "Ma'am," I said, offering a small nod. "My name is Marcus." "Thank you for helping my son," she said, voice trembling. "He told me you stopped them from arresting him." She swallowed hard, shame flickering across her face. "He made a mistake," I said gently, "but not one anyone should lose their future over." Her eyes watered as she looked at Liam, as though she carried every ounce of guilt for his choices. "I failed you," she whispered to him. "Mom," he said quickly, shaking his head. "No, you didn't. I'm the one who—" "No," she said, pressing a trembling hand to his cheek. "You're 17 and doing everything. I should be the one taking care of you." The rawness between them hurt to watch. It was the kind of love forged in desperation, glued together by survival. I stepped onto the porch. "May I come in?" I asked gently. She hesitated only a second before nodding. Of course. Inside, the trailer was small but clean. A sofa patched with duct tape, a tiny kitchen, 2 small bedrooms down a narrow hallway. There were drawings taped to the fridge, spaceships, dinosaurs, a stick figure family holding hands. I recognized the handwriting of younger children immediately. "We don't have much," she said quietly, "but you're welcome to sit." "Thank you," I said. I placed the grocery bags on the counter. When she saw the food, her hand flew to her mouth. "Liam, what did you do?" she whispered. "He didn't steal those," I said quickly. "I bought them." Her shoulders loosened a fraction, but her eyes filled again, this time with a different emotion. Relief mixed with humiliation, mixed with gratitude too heavy to express. 2 little boys peeked from the hallway, both small, thin, with big eyes that flickered between curiosity and caution. The older one stepped forward. "Is that food?" he asked. Liam's throat tightened. "Yeah," he said softly. "We're good for a few days." The younger boy sprinted to the kitchen, grabbing the loaf of bread like it was treasure. "Can I have some now?" he asked. Their mother's voice cracked. "Yes, baby. Yes." I watched quietly as she helped them make simple sandwiches, her hands trembling as she spread peanut butter on slices of bread. The boys ate like they hadn't had a full meal in a while. And that's when it hit me. Not as an idea, but as a punch straight to the soul. This wasn't just poverty. This was a family surviving on hope alone. When the boys finished eating and ran outside to play, she sat across from me, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. "You saved my son tonight. He's a good boy. We're drowning. And sometimes drowning people reach for the wrong things." I leaned forward. "What happened with work?" She sighed. "I fainted 3 times in 1 month. Doctor said it's cardiomyopathy. My heart doesn't pump well. I get dizzy. I get tired. I can't stand long. No employer wants to hear that. Liam took over everything. I told him to quit school and work full-time, but he refused. He said he wouldn't let this life trap him the way it trapped me." I looked toward the hallway where Liam stood, pretending he wasn't listening. He was listening to every word. "He's smart?" I asked. "Very," she said proudly. "Honor roll. Teachers say he's gifted, but gifted doesn't feed anybody." Her voice cracked again. "I just want him to have a chance. Just one." Her words echoed in my mind like they had weight. I thought of my own mother, tired, overworked, sick more often than she admitted, doing everything she could and still falling short. I thought of myself sweeping floors after school, washing dishes in restaurants, going to sleep hungry more nights than not. I thought of the one stranger who spared me from being defined by one stupid mistake, and I realized something that made my chest tighten. I hadn't come here tonight to save Liam. I came because saving him was saving the boy I used to be. I cleared my throat. "Can I ask you something?" She nodded. "If someone offered to help, not charity, real help, would you take it?" She hesitated. I don't like being a burden." "You're not," I said firmly. "Pride doesn't feed kids, and accepting help isn't weakness, it's strategy." Liam stepped fully into the room now, no longer pretending he wasn't part of the conversation. "What kind of help?" he asked quietly. I met his eyes. "You said you go to school during the day, right?" He nodded. "And you work nights here?" Another nod. "What if I told you I could offer you something better? A job, real training, paid, flexible hours so you can stay in school, work that actually leads somewhere?" Their mother's eyes widened. "Why?" she whispered. Why would you do that for us? I took a slow breath. Because someone once did it for me, and I've spent too many years forgetting that. Liam stared at me, disbelief and hope warring in his face. What kind of job? He asked. My company runs logistics, I said. Warehouses, distribution centers, freight movement. We train interns in inventory systems, routing software, warehouse operations, data entry, all skills that can build a career. You'd start part-time, after school, paid weekly. And if you stick with it, I'll personally mentor you. I'll make sure you have a future that doesn't depend on expired bread. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Electric. Liam blinked once, twice, then dropped into a chair like his legs gave out. His mother covered her mouth, shoulders shaking with soft sobs. Are you serious? She whispered. Completely, I said. Liam's voice cracked. Why? Why would you choose me? I looked at him, the answer clearer than anything I'd said all night. Because you remind me of the person I used to be, and because someone once chose me for no reason I could understand. His mother wiped her tears. What do you want in return? Nothing, I said. Just one thing, that you take this seriously, that you don't waste it, that you let this moment change the direction of your life instead of ruining it. Liam stood slowly. His eyes glistened. His voice trembled. I won't waste it, he whispered. I swear, I won't. I'll work harder than anyone you've ever seen. I nodded. Good. Then we start Monday. I reached into my jacket and handed him a business card. He held it carefully like it was made of glass. The room fell quiet again. A kind of quiet that felt sacred. A turning point. A moment where a life splits into two paths, and you can see both futures at once. One filled with struggle, mistakes, and dead-end jobs. The other filled with possibility, dignity, and a chance at something real. But fate wasn't finished with us yet. Because just when I thought the night had reached its emotional peak, just when I thought the turning point had already happened, a sudden knock on the door shattered the fragile peace in the room. A hard, rapid, urgent knock. Liam froze, his mother's face drained of color. I turned toward the door, every instinct in my body on alert. Who's that? Liam whispered. No one answered, and the knocking came again. Louder this time, more forceful. Like someone wasn't just asking to be let in, but demanding it. The knocking rattled the thin door again, making the frame shake. It wasn't the kind of knock you ignore. It was the kind that said, I have power over your life. I'd heard that knock before in my own childhood. I felt my stomach tighten in a way that had nothing to do with the present and everything to do with memory. Liam's mom wiped at her face quickly, trying to pull herself together. Stay here, she whispered, pushing herself up slowly. Her hand grabbed the edge of the table for balance. For a second I thought she might collapse. Liam stepped forward. I'll get it, he said, voice tense. She hesitated, then nodded. He moved toward the door like a man walking toward a verdict. I stood too, instinctively putting myself within a few steps, not sure why yet, just knowing this moment mattered. He opened the door slowly. A man in a faded button-down shirt and worn jeans stood on the porch holding a clipboard. Behind him, a woman in a county office jacket stood with arms folded, expression stone cold. The man glanced at the number on the trailer, then at Liam. Evening, he said. Is your mother home? Liam's throat bobbed. Yeah, he said. She is. His mom appeared a second later, one hand on her chest. Mr. Daniels, she said quietly. It's late. I know, he replied. But I've been trying to catch you for a week. He held out a folded paper. I didn't want to do this, but we're out of time. I didn't need to see the paper to know what it was. I'd seen that color, that font, that format before. Eviction notices have a look, a smell, a weight. They're not just words. They're a countdown clock to homelessness. Her hand shook as she took it. She didn't unfold it. She didn't need to. Please, she said softly. I told you. We just need a little more time. My son's working. I'm trying to get my benefits approved. We'll catch up. The woman behind him, the one from whatever office she represented, spoke up. Ma'am, you're 3 months behind. The park has been more than patient. If we make an exception for you, everyone will want one. We can't do that. Her face crumpled. Where are we supposed to go? She whispered. We don't have anywhere else. The man looked genuinely pained. I'm sorry, he said. I really am. I've been covering for you with the owners as long as I can, but they're done waiting. You've got 10 days. He glanced past her into the trailer and saw me. His eyebrows knit together. You got company? He asked. For a split second, I thought about staying quiet. It wasn't my business. I could pretend I was just some friend passing through, but something in me refused to shrink back into that old shadow. I stepped forward. Evening, I said. I'm Marcus. He looked me over quickly. People who've worked collections for a long time learn to read faces fast. You family? He asked. No, I said. Just someone who's trying to understand what's going on. He shifted his weight. What's going on is they're 3 months behind on lot rent, he said. I've waived the late fees twice. I've let partial payments slide, but I answer to people too. I can't carry it anymore. He nodded at the paper. They have 10 days. Then we file with the court. After that, sheriff gives them a date to vacate. Standard procedure. Standard procedure. I hated those words. They always sound so clean when they're nowhere near the lives they'll destroy. I glanced at Liam. His face was tight, jaw clenched, chest rising and falling too fast. He was trying so hard not to explode. I recognized the storm behind his eyes, the rage at a system that seems designed to squeeze you until you break. He took a step forward. We're trying, he said, voice shaking. I work. I bring my check straight here. We don't waste money. My mom's sick. We're not lazy. We're not. His voice cracked. He looked away, humiliated. The county woman's expression didn't change. She'd probably heard every version of that speech 100 times. I turned to the landlord. How much? I asked. He blinked. Excuse me? How much are they behind? I repeated. He hesitated. Sir, this is really... How much? I asked again, calmly, but firmly. He sighed, looked at his clipboard. With late fees in this month, you're looking at about $1,900. He quoted it like it was a mountain. $1,900. To him, maybe it was just a line item. To this family, it was everything. I did the math in my head automatically, the way I always do. $1,900 was less than what I'd spent last month on a watch repair. Less than a weekend away. Less than a random charity gala table I'd bought out of obligation. But here in this moment, it was the difference between that mother sleeping in a bed or a car with her kids. I reached for my wallet. Can you take a card? I asked. He stared at me like I'd just asked if I could pay in moon dust. You want to pay their balance? Yes, I said. In full right now. Sir, we can't, the county woman started. Why not? I asked, turning to her. You have a problem. They owe money. I have money. I give you money. Problem solved. She pursed her lips, thrown off by the simplicity. It's funny how systems built to punish rarely know what to do with solutions. The landlord rubbed the back of his neck. Look, legally I can accept it, he said slowly. But I don't want to get accused of doing something shady. There's nothing shady about accepting payment, I said. Write me a receipt, put their account at 0, everyone's happy. He glanced at the woman. She shrugged. If the balance is paid, we have no reason to proceed, she admitted. They'd be clear. For now. Then let's be clear, I said. I pulled out my card and handed it over. My hand didn't shake. I felt weirdly calm, like this was the most obvious thing in the world. Liam's mom stared at me, eyes wide, tears streaming silently. "You can't," she whispered. "That's too much. We could never." "You're not paying me back," I said gently. "This isn't a loan. It's a course correction." She shook her head as if trying to reject the very idea. "I can't accept that." "You can," I replied, "because right now this isn't about pride. It's about your boys not sleeping on the street a month from now." Liam stepped forward, voice rough. "Why?" he asked again, more desperately this time. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know us. You could just go back to your life and forget we exist. Why are you staying?" I looked at him, and the answer surfaced before I could overthink it. "Because once, a long time ago, when I was not much older than you, someone stood between me and a really bad outcome," I said. "He paid for something he didn't have to pay for. He talked to people he didn't have to talk to. He saw me when everyone else saw a problem. And I told myself that if I ever got to a place where I had the power to do that for someone else, I would. I got here. I forgot. Tonight reminded me." The landlord had already called his office on speaker, giving them my card information. I heard the beeps, the muffled confirmation, the numbers repeated. "Payment approved," a voice from the other end said. "Account zeroed out." He ended the call, handed me back the card, and scribbled a receipt. "They're clear," he said. "No eviction. No notice. We're square." He looked almost relieved, like he'd been carrying the weight of someone else's suffering without meaning to. "Thank you," I said. "Truly." He nodded at me, then at Liam's mom. "You caught a miracle tonight," he muttered. "Don't waste it." The county woman softened just a fraction. "We won't be bothering you," she said quietly, "as long as you stay current." They left, their footsteps fading into the gravel. When the door closed, the silence inside the trailer was loud. Liam's mom let out a sob that sounded like it came from the bottom of her soul. She sank onto the couch, grabbing her chest, not in pain but in sheer emotional overload. "We're not getting evicted," she whispered. "We're not getting evicted." Liam stood in the middle of the room, stunned, as if his brain couldn't process a reality where disaster backed off instead of crashing down. He looked at me like I was some kind of impossible thing. I shook my head slightly. "Don't look at me like I'm a saint," I said quietly. "I'm not. I've walked past a lot of people I could have helped. I've sat in boardrooms where we made decisions that hurt more people than they helped. Tonight, I just chose differently. That's all." He swallowed, chest heaving. "It's not just," he said. "You saved my job. You saved my record. You saved our home. That's not small." I exhaled. Maybe. Or maybe I just did what any human being should do when they have more than enough, and they see someone drowning. He shook his head. "No," he said. "Most people don't." Then, softer. "You know that." He was right. I did know that. I'd been one of those people far too many times. We sat down around the worn table, the eviction notice still unopened beside the now useless envelope. The weight in the room had shifted, still heavy but different, like the air after a storm. Wet, thick, but strangely fresh. "Okay," I said, leaning my arms on the table. "We handled the immediate disaster, but this can't just be about putting out fires. We need a plan. You don't survive by luck alone. You survive by changing the pattern." Liam nodded slowly. "What kind of plan?" he asked. "For starters," I said, "you're going to keep your job at Walmart, for now." He frowned. "I thought you said—" "I did." I cut in gently. "I said I'd offer you a position at my company, but transitions take time. I need to set it up properly, get HR the paperwork, schedule your training. I don't want to yank you from one unstable situation and throw you into another. So for the next 2 weeks, you stay where you are. You show up early. You work like your name is on the building. You give that manager 0 reasons to regret his decision tonight. He nodded, determined. I can do that. Then, I continued, once the internship is ready, we shift your hours. School remains non-negotiable. You graduate no matter what. Understand? His mother's eyes filled again, not with fear this time, but with something bittersweet. I told him to drop out, she said quietly. I thought I was being practical. You were, I said gently. But practicality without possibility is just survival. We're aiming higher than that now. Liam stared at me. And if I mess up? He asked. If I fail? If I'm not as good as you think? I held his gaze. Then you get back up, I said. You apologize. You learn. You don't hide in a bathroom stall hoping someone spares you. You stand up and take responsibility before it gets that far. He nodded, the truth of it settling inside him. Then his brow furrowed, curiosity pushing past fear. What about you? He asked. You said you used to be like me. What happened? How did you go from, he gestured around the trailer, to, He gestured vaguely toward my watch, my clothes, the invisible life he imagined outside these walls. I let out a slow breath. I didn't get a fair system, I said. I didn't get an easy path. I got a handful of moments, like tonight, where someone could have crushed me, but chose not to. One of those times, a store owner caught me stealing day-old bread out of his dumpster. The employee wanted to call the cops. The owner looked at me for a long time, then said, "Put the bread on my account, and put him on my schedule." I smiled faintly at the memory. He gave me a job instead of a record. Dishwasher, floor sweeper, delivery boy. Hardest job I'd ever had at the time. I hated it. I loved it. It showed me I wasn't just a problem. I was someone worth betting on. I looked at Liam. Years later, when I started my own business, that man came into my office to pitch me on a property. He didn't even recognize me. I signed the deal partly because it was good business, and partly because he once gave a kid a second chance for no profit at all. I paused. That's how life works more often than people admit. Invisible threads, quiet echoes. The way we treat people loops back around, even if we don't see it immediately. Liam was silent for a long time, digesting that. So you think what you put out comes back? He asked. Not in some magical guaranteed way, I said. But the world tends to mirror what we are. If you walk through life assuming everyone's out to get you, you'll prove yourself right. If you walk through life believing kindness is weakness, you'll only notice people who take advantage. But if you decide, deliberately, to be someone who interrupts cruelty, who chooses mercy, who uses what they have to lift instead of push down, it changes you first, and then it ripples outward. He nodded slowly. So tonight, what does it change for you? I smiled, but there was a weight behind it. It forces me to admit that I didn't climb out of poverty on sheer grit alone, I said. It makes me face the truth that somewhere along the way, I became the kind of man who judged kids like you instead of remembering I was one. And it offers me a chance to fix that, to live more honestly with the story I tell about myself. His mom reached across the table, placing a thin hand over mine. You already fixed more than you know, she whispered. You reminded my son that not everyone with money looks down on us. That matters, more than you think. Her eyes shone with a quiet strength that made me feel small in the best way. We talked for another hour, about practical things, budgets, bills, school schedules, about medical appointments, about how to set up automatic payments so rent didn't fall behind again. I promised to have someone from my office help them navigate the benefits maze, the paperwork, the red tape that strangles people who need help most. Eventually, it was time to leave. The boys came back in, sleepy, faces smudged with dirt and peanut butter. They waved at me shyly. Thank you, the older one said, For the bread. He had no idea how much more had just happened than a loaf of bread. Maybe that was okay. Kids shouldn't have to carry the weight of everything. On the porch, under the weak yellow light, Liam walked me to the car. The night was cold, but there was a softness to the air. "I don't know how to repay you," he said, voice rough. I opened the car door and turned to face him. "You will," I said. "One day you'll be somewhere, a store, a school, a job, and you'll see someone about to go under. You'll have a choice, look away or step in. You'll remember this night. That's how you repay me." His eyes burned. He nodded. "I will," he whispered. "I promise." I got in, started the engine, and rolled down the window. "And Liam?" I added. "Yeah? If you ever get close to making another choice like you did tonight, don't wait to get caught. Call me. Tell me the truth before it blows up. Deal?" He smiled for real this time, small, but real. "Deal." He stepped back, lifted a hand in a little wave, and watched me drive away. I don't know how long he stood there. I just know that as I pulled out of the trailer park and watched the rows of dimly lit homes fade in my rearview mirror, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not pride, not superiority. Something quieter, a kind of alignment. Like for once my money and my memories, my success and my story were all pointed in the same direction. If you're still here with me, listening to this, maybe you're feeling a mix of things. Sympathy, anger, hope. Maybe you're thinking about a time when you were the one begging to be spared, or a time you turned away from someone else's plea because it felt messy or inconvenient. I won't lie to you. I've done both. What I learned that night in the Walmart restroom and in that tiny trailer is simple, but it shook me. Most people aren't asking to be spared from consequences. They're asking to be spared from being reduced to their worst moment. Liam wasn't a thief. He was a kid standing in the gap between hunger and humiliation, making a terrible choice because he felt like there were no good ones left. His mother wasn't irresponsible. She was a woman whose body had betrayed her, trying to stretch strength and love farther than they were designed to go. And me? I wasn't just a self-made man. I was a collection of other people's mercies, stitched together into a story I'd been taking too much credit for. We like to pretend life is a straight equation: work hard, succeed, mess up, pay. But real life is messier. It's full of context, invisible battles and crossroads where one person's decision can permanently bend someone else's path. That night, I kicked open a stall door thinking I was about to stop a crime. Instead, I walked into a mirror. So let me ask you something, not as some untouchable millionaire, but as someone who's been the kid and the adult in this story. If you heard someone in a restroom whisper, "Please spare me, I won't again," what would you do? Would you walk out and tell yourself it wasn't your problem? Would you rush in angry, ready to punish? Or would you take a breath, look closer, and ask what kind of person you want to be in moments that actually matter? If this story stirred something in you, even a little, I want you to do two things for me. First, hit the like button. Not for me, not for the algorithm, but so stories like this keep finding people who've forgotten they still have the power to change someone's day or someone's life. Second, tell me in the comments, have you ever been saved by someone's mercy? Or have you ever been the one who stepped in when no one else did? Because maybe the real difference between a life that hardens and a life that heals is how many times we choose to be that person for someone else. And if you want to hear more stories like this, real, messy, human stories that remind you this world isn't just numbers on a screen, make sure you subscribe. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss the next time we step into someone's ordinary day and find out it wasn't ordinary at all. One night, in a Walmart restroom, I heard a boy whisper, "Please spare me. I won't again." I kicked the door open, thinking I was about to ruin someone's lie. Instead, I walked into the truth about myself. And now, I can't unhear it.